Story 1. In my area in Michigan, new houses are very expensive, and the old houses that baby boomers used to own are being bought up for cheap and fixed up by people who want to flip them. If more people start losing their jobs in the future, things could get complicated. Story 2. Many homes are in poor condition. Older adults are often reluctant to admit they cannot maintain their houses into their 80s. Story 3. With younger generations having fewer children and the baby boomer generation leaving their homes, large corporations are likely to continue acquiring these houses to artificially inflate housing costs and maintain rental income. If Congress passes a law limiting the number of single-family homes a company and its subsidiaries can own to, say, 10 homes, we may see a significant drop in home prices. The reality is that Congress, regardless of party, does not prioritize the interests of the average person. They focus on their own self-interests, primarily re-election. Since BlackRock can fund re-election campaigns and Jack and Diane, two American children in the heartland just trying to buy a starter home, cannot, it is clear which group Congress supports. Therefore, we should not expect laws limiting the number of homes investors can buy to be passed anytime soon. Story 4. I figure it will not look much different because baby boomers' children will still be living in the house. Maybe the grandchildren move into the basement now. Story 5. The housing issue in the United States is an allocation problem, not a supply problem. Measures like California's Proposition 13 have made it worse, but many places face the same issue. The problem is that families of 4 live in condos and apartment buildings, sometimes farther from city centers where their jobs are located. Meanwhile, retirees with 1 or 2 people live in 3- and 4-bedroom single-family homes closer to city centers, even though they no longer work or commute daily. Efficient use of housing supply would mean that older boomers sell their houses and downsize. This would free up houses for families. Essentially, these two groups would swap housing. There are a few problems with this. 1. Proposition 13 means boomers pay almost no taxes on their homes. If they buy a new place, they will start paying much higher taxes, so they do not move. If they downsize, they face capital gains taxes. Selling their primary residence and buying a less expensive place means they cannot use the primary residence exemption to avoid capital gains taxes. This incentivizes people to buy bigger and more expensive houses each time they move. If they stay in their house, they can refinance and access the house's value without paying capital gains taxes. People have become attached to their homes and communities and do not want to give them up. Because others do not make a change, there is no reason for them to do so. Some feel they would be failures if they sold and downsized since no one else does it. There is social pressure to keep the family home, even though it often sits largely empty and is difficult to maintain. All of this shows that government policies have largely contributed to the inefficient use of our housing stock. Story 6. Most of them are leaving their properties to their children or selling them before they die to afford a nursing home. Usually, these properties are bought by investors and resold at a much higher price because they have not been well maintained. Story 7. Anyone thinking baby boomers dying will solve our housing shortage is delusional. It will be just like any other generation passing away. Their children will sell the houses at market rate, divide up the proceeds, and move along. Buyers will be some Generation Zers, Millennials, Generation Z, and others. This is not the first time a generation will be dying off, and it has never before been any kind of solution to the supply issue we have in housing. It will not be the fix this time either. Story 8. The housing market problems are largely because companies and individuals buy multiple homes to lease them out for profit, combined with a lack of new construction. The situation will only improve if your city is experiencing a population decline or is building new affordable housing. Story 9. I remember reading an article about a company in Ontario that buys about 200 homes a day. As long as companies are allowed to purchase as many homes as they want, the market will always be troubled. Story 10. If it is anything like my city, bank-backed firms will offer cash to elderly people with mediocre homes in great locations. The homes will be renovated and sold or rented out for 2 to 3 times what they paid for them. Banks are heavily pressuring every homeowner I know to sell. Multiple phone calls a week, at least 1 mailer per day. Any way they can contact you, they will. At some point in most people's lives, They face a tough financial situation, and someone offering cash within a week for an old house that needs repairs sounds like a good option. So, they do not mind taking 20 to 30% less if they get the money quickly. Story 11. The poor baby boomers will not have anything to pass on. The middle-class baby boomers will reverse mortgage their houses, or the aged care costs will consume all that inheritance. The wealthy baby boomers will have trusts and other methods to ensure wealth is passed down. The gap will widen, but who is willing to protest issues on the other side of the world? Story 12. When we moved into our neighborhood, we were a young couple with small children. Most of the other homes were owned by retirees. Over the next few years, more young families moved in. Now we are the old retired couple, and young families are moving in all around us. The circle of life. Story 13. I imagine the properties will go to heirs and then either be used by them or sold for a profit. The surprising thing is that we are talking about the baby boomers finally leaving their houses when many of their children are my age, in their 40s. Looking at people my age, it is quite divided as to who owns a home and who does not among the people I know. Many of my friends got houses right after high school or in their late 20s. Those who did not probably cannot afford to buy anything regardless of the cost or availability. If they were offered a house through inheritance, they would probably take it and potentially face foreclosure down the road. The timing of it all is just backwards. Story 14. Their children inherit the estate and sell it for 10 to 20 times what they bought it for in 1980. Then the children fight over money and the old lamp they all want but no one will ever plug in. Tale as old as time. Story 15. Aged houses needing both maintenance and modern renovations. Buyers will negotiate the selling prices lower. Story 16. Look at what is happening in the Palos Verdes area in Southern California fire. Small houses are being torn down and bigger houses are being built. Story 17. They will have to sell them to pay for their large amount of elder care. The housing stock will probably even out a bit unless all the corporations buy them. Story 18. I suspect that as more housing becomes available on the market due to baby boomers aging, wealthier investors will purchase many of these properties. This will result in an increase in lifelong renters. Story 19. Still not going to be great in places where it is worst. Young people want places in the city. Baby boomers moved to the suburbs. Story 20. If every baby boomer died at once, there would be a surplus of homes on the market, which would likely drive prices down. If they all passed away gradually over a 20-year period, the impact on prices would be much less. Ultimately, baby boomers holding onto their houses is only one reason for high housing prices. A significant factor is the substantial amount of corporate and foreign investment in the market, which is unlikely to change anytime soon. Story 21. It just depends on trade and immigration policy. Regardless of what people say about greed, the plain fact is former President Donald Trump's tariffs and immigration policies during his first term caused housing prices to spike in areas with low land values. Housing prices generally follow the material and labor costs of construction. If trade barriers are lowered and more affordable labor is brought in, houses will become affordable again. If not, it will be well into 2080 before the population decline starts to have a significant impact, since baby boomers' children were the first generation to feel the economic squeeze from the dot-com and real estate bubble crashes, causing fewer children to be born. Story 22. The price of homes will never come down except in unpredictable small areas scattered across the country due to lack of jobs in those areas. The price of lumber will continue to increase for new home construction. Labor costs will likely rise sharply as tradespeople become rare, commanding high wages because younger generations are not interested in the trades, and the current administration is deporting foreign tradesmen. These factors affect not only the price of new homes but also the prices of existing homes. The best time to buy is as soon as you can afford to. Story 23. My child, who is a baby boomer, will have to live with me and assist me so she can inherit. It's sad. I don't want that for her, but I also want her and the other two who live far away to receive my money, not the nursing home. Story 24. I live in a high-growth area, an all-American suburb near a state capital. This town was basically put on the map by the baby boomer generation. We are near a fairly vibrant town center in an area built mostly in the 1960s and 1970s with lots between 1/4 and 1/2 acres. The baby boomers here are moving on rather quickly due to aging retirement homes or moving in with adult children. Sadly, the trend here seems to be the adult children of the baby boomers selling quickly to companies like Opendoor and Redfin to get it over with. These homes are then turned into overpriced rentals or purchased by wealthy people who buy low and do tear downs. They are buying split-level houses in the $500,000 range, tearing them down, and building houses valued at around $2 million on these bigger lots. I think it depends on where you live. Story 25. If boomers do not leave the house to an heir, it is taken by the government. If we cannot afford to pay the property tax on the house, it is also taken by the government. Once the government owns the houses, they will either rent them, temporarily sell them, or permanently sell them back to the public. At that point, the government controls housing costs. The poor get poorer and the rich get richer because they have no incentive to help the poor. Story 26. I am assuming an increasing percentage of them will be owned by corporations, and most governments will do nothing to stop it. Story 27. Guys, it is not the baby boomers doing this. It is big corporations and investment firms, such as BlackRock and Vanguard, building and buying up single-family homes and turning them into rental properties. Story 28. They will take out reverse mortgages and leave nothing behind. It is a self-focused generation that is obsessed with their own happiness and does not realize how easy they had it. Ironically, that is what causes their high depression rates. Story 29. The investors and banks are buying the properties. It will look as it does now, even more inflated. Story 30. The same as it does now. Baby boomers are already fading fast and are no longer the majority of homeowners. Story 31. Nothing will change because every house around here that goes up for sale is immediately purchased by some corporation and then rented out at extremely high prices. Until that changes, the housing market is severely affected. Story 32. The housing market throughout the entire developed world is going to stagnate for the rest of your life, your children's lives, and beyond. Housing is going to be the worst performing asset you can have and will grow slower than inflation. Story 33. My prediction: there will not be one in the traditional sense. Hedge funds and conglomerates will buy as much of the housing market as they can, and real estate agencies are consolidating. The goal is to corner the housing market and make home ownership as a source of generational wealth disappear for the average family. Additionally, we will see the return of company towns. A corporation will buy entire communities and use housing as a benefit for employees, much like healthcare currently. Home ownership will be seen as a relic of the past, and in a generation or two, it will be unfathomable that an average worker could own property in America. Story 34. There will be homes on the market needing updates. Younger buyers will purchase them at the current market price, renovate them, and be satisfied. Story 35. Presumably, they will take us out with them for one last point of spite. Besides that, some artificial intelligence private equity group is going to own all of those houses and rent out each room in an a la carte or downloadable content model for the full price of the mortgage. Story 36. It will not magically get better. The system is rigged in ways that have nothing to do with the demographic pyramid, and mass automation is going to make it worse. Story 37. In a pre-21st century world, all of that housing would, of course, be passed on to children and other family members. That is no longer the case due to the rise of end-of-life care costs and corporations that now see homes as an alternative revenue stream. Story 38. Corporations will own the houses. They are currently buying up properties rapidly and renting them out. If the property does not meet the minimum standards for rental properties, they gut it and sell it for parts. One of my friends does the gutting for an investment firm in my area. Story 39. In the United Kingdom, rental costs will become even more burdensome. Many people have sold their houses using equity release, so there will be little inheritance left. Story 40. Two scenarios. Families with generational wealth and real estate will become significantly richer through wealth transfers. Millennials who grew up wealthy and already own property will sell the properties of their boomer parents to invest and increase their wealth. The second scenario is that banks, insurance companies, and reverse mortgage companies will become much richer when they take the homes of boomers without generational wealth. These boomers have struggled to keep their homes throughout retirement, leaving nothing to their millennial children. Story 41. Probably more companies own houses. When I was looking to buy a house, an insane number were owned by companies. Now, companies are always trying to contact me with lowball offers to buy my house when it was not even listed for sale. I think they acquire many of their houses from elderly people who do not realize they are being taken advantage of because they did not keep up with house prices. Story 42. They are going to be bought up by corporations while their children are renting because they still cannot afford the upkeep and taxes. So we are still in a difficult situation. Story 43. No different. The same people who own almost everything now will own slightly more in the future, and they will continue to keep many homes vacant to keep driving prices up, just as they have been doing for over 10 years. Story 44. The people who inherit the homes will put their millennial children in them so they can finally move out. Story 45. Banks will own the homes. They will sell them to property management companies. The homes will be available for rent. Story 46. This considers that not all baby boomers have equity to pass down. Both sides of the baby boomer grandparents had bankrupt estates. There is no generational wealth here. Story 47. What will the housing market look like? Or how will the housing market look? I hate when people say, like, at the end of a house sentence. Everyone seems to be doing it lately. It is wrong. The same goes for people spelling border as border. Story 48. The housing market will be great as long as you have a baby boomer parent from whom you inherit a house. Otherwise, it is pretty bleak unless we make major changes to housing market policy or finally start building enough houses to meet demand. Story 49. Largely the same. The bottom line is that a lot of it is driven by issues around lack of supply. That will not change just because a particular generation passes. There may be an increase in lodgers as people who inherited look to make the most of their new home. Conversely, you might see a decrease driven by people wanting their own space more. Story 50. They should all live in an exhibit at the Smithsonian with a plaque describing how they ruin society for future generations. Story 51. Won't a lot of Generation Zers and Millennials suddenly have either their first home or become landlords? The transfer of wealth will be real, and I guess there will be noticeably less demand for the limited housing supply for a revolving 15 to 20-year period. I know my boomer parents did all right, as did her sister. Their kids, including me, have definitely struggled, but other than occasional help with a tire or Christmas gift, they largely let us figure it out ourselves. So whatever they leave us will be a sudden leap in wealth. We will essentially leapfrog our parents in class with what they leave us. I know this is fortunate and not universal, but the boomers have done all right as a generation, so this will be the case for a lot of their kids. Story 52. If not reverse mortgaged back to the bank, which will become more common, they will be inherited by their children and then largely sold, especially because ownership will be split among the children. These properties will then be bought by private companies, and wealth will continue to consolidate. Story 53. Many properties are being purchased by investors, both small and large, who convert them into rentals or demolish them for larger developments. Baby boomers, as a generation, are cashing in on their real estate instead of passing it down or selling it to young families for residence. They are also selling it back to predatory reverse mortgage companies. Story 54. Private equity firms have significantly increased their involvement in single-family home purchases. According to recent reports, 44% of all single-family home purchases are now made by private equity firms. This shift has important implications for the real estate market and housing affordability. Story 55. Prices would drop dramatically due to lower birth rates, regardless of how much people think private equity would be able to support the market. The market would still collapse. However, the wealthy continue to encourage mass immigration, so prices will rise indefinitely. Story 56. Corporate property management companies engage in price fixing of rentals and outbidding individual buyers on sales. Story 57. At this point, I fully expect to see investors buy all of the housing they can as soon as the housing market drops. Rentals will be the only option for many people. Story 58. The oldest baby boomers are now 80. There will be downward pressure on housing prices as they sell their homes to downsize or move into assisted living. What has just started as a trickle will grow until there is a tipping point and a sharp drop in prices as the remaining owners panic sell. As usual, the generations after the baby boomers will face challenges one last time before the market stabilizes. Once that is over, housing will become something you buy to live in, not as an appreciating investment. Story 59. It is surprising how people generalize a group of individuals born between 1946 and 1964. Come on now, I was born in 1963 and have nothing in common with anyone born in the 1940s or 1950s. Story 60. Completely corporate-owned and leased. I imagine the baby boomers, in one last spiteful move, will get reverse mortgages, taking the very last of their value with them. Story 61. Baby boomers did not buy houses with minimum wage jobs bagging groceries and flipping patties. They bought them with wages earned fighting wars and working on oil rigs. The housing market will not improve when they die because many people are unwilling to go out and earn a living, but someone in India or China absolutely is. I work construction and see these new Lenner and KB home subdivisions sold out in presale cash offers before the first model home is finished. There is no shortage of buyers. The fact is that people who have the most free time to spend complaining on the internet also tend to be the least employed. Web forums would have you believe houses are overpriced, when realistically every new home could have an extra $100,000 tacked on and still sell. Story 62. Local and foreign real estate companies will buy what was not inherited. They will turn these properties into rentals or sell them at exorbitant prices to cash buyers, who are often other companies. This is the current situation, and there is no reason to believe it will change drastically. Story 63. How many children did the baby boomers have again? The population is even larger than before. One generation dying is not going to change that. Story 64. It will be passed down through generations if they are smart, so there will probably not be much difference. The rich will get richer. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.